Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the weakest champions right now for patch 7.16. So usually we only take a look at the strongest champions and what's the best for each patch, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to discuss which champions are the weakest right now and why they're really weak and just why they don't really fit into this meta. So if you guys do like this kind of video and you think I should do one of these like once every few patches, then be sure to let me know down in the comments below. But with that being said guys, let's get started. So the first champion on this list for this patch is going to be Ryze. Now Ryze is a pretty problem champion for Riot. He's been reworked 3 or 4 times now, maybe even, and he's a pick to where he's either super weak or he's really strong. I feel like Ryze is never balanced and he's in like a good state. Right now in this meta, after just receiving so many nerfs and with other picks just outranging this champion, it's really hard to blind pick Ryze and to actually be successful on it. There's so many counter picks for solo queue against this champion. He's probably got the most counter picks for like any mid laner in the game. There's picks like Vel'Koz, Cassiopeia, Ziggs, like just any champion that can outrange Ryze and that can stay out of range of his abilities are just gonna straight up beat him as long as those players do know how to space properly against Ryze. He's also a pick that does require quite a bit of micromanagement, and because he's short ranged and also needs to be able to micromanage well in team fights, it's just very easy to get picked off with Ryze, and you don't have a gap closer in your kit, so if you get thresh hooked, if you get blitz hooked or something, then you're just gonna straight up die. So you can just really easily get picked off with this champion, and I think that because of that, he's just not a very consistent pick for solo queue. He also just doesn't have that really game-changing ability in his kit or that strong AoE ability that can really change a team fight. If you fall behind with Ryze, you're probably one of the most useless mid laners in the game because you're just never going to be able to impact a fight with a strong AoE ability or with a strong CC ability. For example, with someone like Orianna, you still do have the ability to impact a game even if you do fall behind because your ultimate is just such a great team fighting tool, so there's always something that you can do with a lot of these other mid lane champions, but if you fall behind with Ryze, then you basically can't do anything. And then to top it all off, his ultimate is just very bad for solo queue. I feel like most Ryze ultimates, they're used super poorly, and a lot of the time, the Ryze ultimate is going to end up killing your team instead of getting your team kills. I feel like it's very rarely in solo queue to where a Ryze player uses their ultimate and it just ends up getting your team a really good pick. It usually just ends up getting your team into the enemy team and then you just get bursted out right away as soon as you get out of the Ryze ultimate. So his kit for solo queue and just with getting a ton of nerfs over the past few months just doesn't really put him in a very good spot in this meta. Next up here is going to be probably the weakest AD carry in the game right now in Ezreal. So Ezreal in this patch right now is very bad and he's been pretty bad for the past few patches. There's a few different reasons to why Ezreal has kind of fallen out of the meta. The first one is that a few months ago, the AD carry items got some pretty big changes. Infinity Edge, Static Ship, Rapid Fire Cannon, all of these crit items got some pretty significant buffs, and that doesn't help out Ezreal at all. Ezreal is an AD to where he builds tier, he builds Trinity Force, and he doesn't build any crit in his core build. So with those other AD carries benefiting from the crit item changes, it kind of just leaves Ezreal behind, and none of his items that he builds really got significant buffs, so that does hurt him quite a bit. He's also an AD carry to where he doesn't really provide anything for his team other than pure damage. He doesn't have, for example, like a Sivir ultimate that can help his team out. He doesn't have insane tower pushing ability that someone like a Tristana has. He doesn't have just any utility in his kit that's going to help his team out. So if you're not able to do a significant amount of damage as Ezreal compared to what you do on a different AD carry that does provide more for their team, then there's just not much point in picking Ezreal, and because he just doesn't do a lot of damage right now with the items that he builds, he's just not a super good pick in this meta. And then because we are in a tank meta right now, Ezreal is one of the worst champions in the game at killing tanks. The best champions at killing tanks are picks that do end up going for a lot of crit and then eventually get like a last whisper, but because Ezreal doesn't have any crit in his build, he does struggle to kill those tanks, especially before he gets his Blade of the Ruined King. And then even once he does have his Blade, it's super late on into the game, and his mid game against tanks is just extremely weak because he's gonna have Trinity Force and he's he's going to have his mirror mana, and he's just not going to be able to touch the tanks in this patch that are building armor, so it just makes him an overall pretty weak pick right now. Next up here on this list is going to be Lee Sin. So right now in this meta, with like a lot of tanks being played and with a lot of really good disengaged supports, it just really makes it hard for Lee Sin to be successful. If you don't snowball the early game with this champion in this patch, then you're gonna lose like 99% of your games. I don't think I've won a game in this patch when I've had a Lee Sin on my team, and whenever they're on the enemy team, it feels like it's basically a free win if they don't end up snowballing super hard. With picks right now like Maokai, Sejuani, Mundo, with these tank picks, if you don't end up getting like 5 kills ahead of them, I feel like you're just not going to be as useful on Lee Sin as you are going to be on Maokai or Sejuani. And these tank picks as well, usually they don't have the strongest early games, but a Maokai or a Sej can still have a very successful early game. They can still gank really well, so it just doesn't really make much sense to pick Lee in this patch because he just doesn't have that super strong point in comparison to a lot of these other meta picks right now. He also struggles super hard against picks like Janna or Sona or Soraka, because if you're diving in on the back line and there's a Janna on the enemy team, you're just going to get ulted out. You're not going to be able to burst down anyone. So Lee in this patch right now is a very risky pick, and because of that, I don't really think he's worth playing into 7.16. Next up here is going to be a support pick, and it's going to be Karma. So I like to think of Karma right now as just the weaker Sona. If you take a look at both of the champions kits, both have the potential to proc Ardent Sensor on all of their members. Karma can do it with an Alt E and Sona can do it with her W, but the difference between these two champions is that Sona can do this once every 4 seconds, whereas Karma can do it whenever ultimate is off cooldown, which is a lot longer than what Sona can do it. Karma also does not have that ability in her kit that is really super game changing. Sona has her ultimate, which is an ability you can use in a lot of different scenarios. You can use it to engage with a flash ult, you can use it to disengage and peel for your carries. So Sona does have the potential to keep her carries a little bit safer and just peel a little bit better. Karma does not have that like hard CC ability in her kit that's gonna peel off like a diving champion. She has the shields and she has her W, which is okay peel, but it's not gonna stop like a fed carry. If they got like a Kha'Zix on the enemy team diving in, you're not gonna be able to stop that champion from bursting out your 80 carry. So she just kind of gets outclassed right now by a lot of these other Ardent Sensor supports. And then one other major reason to why she fell out of meta is because of Doran's shield. Karma is a champion to where if you don't have a good early game on her and you don't pressure super hard, then you're just not going to be as useful as a Janna is or a Sona is. And because Doran's shield is just a great item at negating a lot of poke damage in the laning phase and just farming up in lane, if the AD carry takes that against you, then you're just not really going to be able to do too much, and therefore there's not much point in picking Karma if her laning phase is her strong point, and she's not even really good at that right now in this patch. Next up here is going to be a top lane pick, and it's going to be Shen. So Shen for solo queue is never usually a very good pick, and there's a few reasons why. The first one is because you heavily rely on your team to do well in the early game to be successful with Shen. You're never gonna really solo carry a game with this champion because his kit is just not that great for solo queue. He's got one CC ability in his kit with his taunt, and it's not even a super reliable CC ability. He also does not have like super insane damage in his kit. He doesn't have that like long range CC ability. What makes Shen a good pick is his ability to just keep his carries really safe and just allow them to play more aggressive because he does have that ultimate. But if his carries aren't consistently doing damage and they're not playing aggressive, or if they fall behind in the early game, then you're not going to be able to protect them, and the Shen pick is just going to be a lot more useless than a tank in the top lane that does have more crowd control or that does have a lot more damage than what a Shen does. So overall, his kit just isn't super good for solo queue. He doesn't have that reliable hard engage. He also doesn't have super good damage in his kit, so he's just a weaker version of a lot of these top lane tanks that are being played right now in this meta. And then lastly here, to round out this video, is going to be a top lane pick, and it's going to be Nautilus. So the main reason to why Nautilus is not in this meta right now, and in my opinion what they could do to bring him back into the meta, is just fix his mana problems. Back in 7.8, Nautilus got a change to where his mana regen growth got nerfed and his E mana cost got increased, and with both of those changes happening to Nautilus, it kind of completely took him out of the meta. They also ended up nerfing Doran's Ring to where you can no longer stack that item, so Nautilus's ability to shove waves compared to a lot of the other tank picks right now in the top lane is just really bad. Take Maokai for example, his mana cost on his Q is 50 mana at all ranks, and it's a very good wave clear ability. When you take a look at Nautilus, his E, which is his main wave clear ability, costs 90 mana, which is 40 mana more than the Maokai Q, so you just run into a lot of mana problems with Nautilus in the top lane. So I think they should either revert those changes that they did to Nautilus back in 7.8, or they need to give him some sort of other buff so that he just doesn't run super quick in the laning phase, and that's so he can just have a decent mana pool. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. Let me know down in the comments below if you do agree with this list. I feel like a lot of people will probably disagree with this, and this is just my personal opinion on a lot of these picks, but I do think I did give some pretty good explanation to why they're on here and to why they're pretty weak right now in comparison to a lot of the other picks that you do see played quite often. So with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already, and I will see you in my next video.